Seth, what's going on, my guy? How's your summer going?
My summer is going really well. It has been hot here, like we've talked about, but otherwise, it's been awesome. I've done a good bit of reading. Our listeners might know I went to Greece, so it has been a good summer for me. How about you, Jonathan?
It's been a whirlwind, but here we are. This is our first time recording in August, which is wild. So we're moving along. We're getting
God.
close to all sorts of things. And Seth, we are finally getting close to and approaching our favorite question. What would you do in this particular situation? Seth, it's a math question.
Oh no.
Would you want to have to do a ton of multiplication or a ton of division?
Multiplication?
Yeah?
Oh yeah. I think I'm.
Any reason?
I just think I'm better at it than division. I mean, I don't know how hard the multiplication's gonna be, but if it's like your times tables, I could rock that. But if it's like,
Yeah, could still rock some times tables, I think.
but if it's like long division, like I don't know. I mean, I could theoretically do it, I guess, but like it's gonna take me pretty long to do it. I'm not gonna be able to do it in my head.
This is also a situation where I think math, particularly multiplication and division, and particularly changed so quickly after we finished school. Like one of the things that we're probably pretty close to that like generational divide that learned how to multiply one way versus another and divide in the same way.
Yeah.
And so I really am not sure on this one. I also feel a little bit more comfortable with multiplication. It just feels like it's a little bit easier to build up.
Yeah,
But
that.
division's just doing it backwards, you know? Like it's I don't know.
Oh no.
Long division's hard, but it can be helpful. It's also like, why didn't anyone tell us that calculators existed when we were doing all this stuff by hand, you know?
And everyone, you might remember this line, like, you're not gonna have a calculator on you all the time. And I was like, well, now I have a phone, and even my Apple Watch has a calculator. Like, joke's on you. But I
And there's
could,
absolutely still value in knowing how to do some things, but it's like, I don't know, I'm reminded of one of my seminary professors who taught our Koine Greek classes. She was like, some of this stuff is really important to know, but unless you're planning on becoming a literary scholar in this language, like, you just need to know how to recognize things in your software that tells you all the tenses and the origins of the words. Like, it just like, it feels like an opportunity for us to lean into some of the technology that we have and say, these are the skills behind it. This is how it works. But you can also use it, and here's some ways you can use it.
yes, yeah. Thank the Lord for the calculator.
Yeah, whoever invented the calculator, appreciated. I
Albert
mean,
C. calculator.
do you think they were being that critical about the abacus?
No, no.
I actually think they were.
You think they were?
I think people were like, yeah, if you're going to use this thing to remember, how are you going to ever remember all the numbers that you're supposed to remember?
I thought maybe my theory was that maybe the abacus took some skill to use, so therefore there wasn't as much pushback. But the calculator really doesn't take any skill to use. Like you put in the number, and then you hit times, plus, divide, minus, put in
Yeah,
the other number, and you get it. But the abacus
I
takes a
think
little bit of work.
that's true. I feel similarly about like there are other like technical skills like coding or even just one of my favorite things doing work in Excel that is becoming almost obsolete because of AI. Like these are things that AI is particularly good at. Like you can input a ton of code and say where are the problems in this and it will
Yeah,
be able to
yeah,
actually identify it for the most part, especially in some more specialized tools. And like Excel formulas and stuff are one of the like things like just inputting the existence of like the Excel formula database more or less means that you can type and say, hey, I want a formula that does this, what do I do? And it gives you usually step-by-step instructions that tend to work pretty well.
wow. Jonathan, what makes me sad is that people are coming for your Excel skills. That makes me sad.
I'm fine.
Okay. Well, if you're fine, then I'm not sad about it anymore. That's one of my rules in life. This is an aside. But if like the other person is not sad about it, then like you don't get, then like you can't be sad about it. I guess you can, but like that's just wasted energy. If the other person's like,
Right.
no,
Yeah.
like honestly, I'm good, then it's not worth you being like, oh, okay, then no.
Right. That's right. It's when your empathy becomes imagined. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, that's a good way to say it.
Well, Seth, you're going to see that we're picking right back up where we left off last week. I wanted to also explore this week's reading from Luke chapter 12. We're going to dive into a psalm, I think, in a little bit, if the conversation goes that way. But we're going to pick back up Luke chapter 12, beginning in verse 49. And I want to read a few of these verses. This is Jesus speaking. I've come to cast fire upon the earth, and how I wish it were already ablaze. I have a baptism with which to be baptized, and what constraint I am under until it is completed. Do you think that I have come to bring peace to the earth? No, I tell you, but rather division. From now on, 5 in one household will be divided, 3 against 2, and 2 against 3. They will be divided, father against son, and son against father, mother against daughter, and daughter against mother, mother-in-law against her daughter-in-law, and daughter-in-law against mother-in-law. He also said to the crowds, when you see a cloud rising in the west, you immediately say, it's going to rain. And so it happens. And when you see the south wind blowing, you say, there will be scorching heat. And it happens. You hypocrites, you know how to interpret the appearance of earth and sky, but why do you not know how to interpret the present time?
Oh,
So remembering our conversation last week about Jesus sharing about his return and the timing of all that, this, I think, passage makes a bit more sense in that context. That being said, I also still think it's kind of a weird one. And something that like really takes some diving into, not just to like understand the context, but I think just to understand and make sense of it, period. So, Seth, I want to hear your reactions to those verses. In particular, I'm curious about your reaction to this idea that Jesus doesn't bring peace, but brings division.
yeah, I think. I mean, the way that I tend to think about this passage is that it's rooted so much in its historical context that like what Jesus is describing about the fathers and sons who are divided and mothers-in-law against their daughters-in-law, and it's just like one of the things that Jesus ministry did in history. Like it sort of divided families against each other. They were like, oh, well, I think we should follow this guy. I think that he comes and says things that are true and meaningful. And other people in their family were like, I think that he's a nut. Like, I think he's just absolutely crazy. And like, I'm not following him. It reminds me maybe of like, this is maybe not the best example, but one of the ways we've seen that today, I think, is like when families get super divided about their politics. Like some things are just divisive, and that can tear families apart and divide them. So that's how I tend to hear it. But man, it's like I just, as someone who wants Jesus to be like a great unifier in some way, it's hard to hear Jesus stand up and be like, actually, I'm not that at all. Like I have not come to bring peace, but rather like I'm gonna bring division inevitably.
You heard it here first, folks. Seth is comparing Jesus Christ to Donald
That
Trump.
was oh god. I said it and I was like, oh no.
So let's situate that. Let's dive into that context a little bit more, right?
Okay, sure.
Because it does mean something different for I'd say, a rebel or like a outspoken voice among the oppressed to say, I'm not here to keep the peace. That means something different than for you and I, as people whose identities are typically associated with a lot of domination and a lot of power, or someone who's holding political office, doing the same thing. That is just objectively a different scenario, and these words have different meaning in that space. if we can be objective about it, which I think is worth questioning too. But thinking that Jesus is coming in to ease in whatever is coming about, I think is not only counterintuitive based on this moment, but it's counterintuitive based on the messages that he's shared throughout even just Luke's gospel, for example.
Yeah. Hmm.
And you think about how many times his presence, his words, his actions have, quite frankly, stirred shit up. Like, thinking about Jesus as this great unifier solely seems to ignore and set aside a lot of what he's doing to disrupt and dismantle. Now, his bringing division is not, I think some other passages that are similar, or maybe even some translations, talk about, I don't bring peace but a sword. And that, of course, has been tied to so many acts of violence that have been either blessed by or perpetrated by the institution of the church over the centuries. It's not associated with this kind of division that is about splitting bone from tendon and sinew. It's about this kind of division that is disrupting, I think, the status quo. And even if there are some things that are less physical, more idea-based, ideological, theological, do you think there are any ideas or beliefs that Jesus may be trying to divide us from?
Absolutely. I mean, I think Jesus wants us to stop thinking about other people as who are different than us as lesser, and to stop thinking that like this unbridled capitalism that we have that just pushes constant competition at whatever cost to consumers and the environment is a meaningful way forward. I think that Jesus calls us to care about people who are hungry, and not to cut programs and assistance to them, but instead to maybe embrace those people and to think about not only like how they're going to get their food tomorrow, but how can we ensure that they get their food like reliably going forward. And frankly, I'm thinking very specifically about the people in Gaza who have been like systematically starved by Israel, who has kept food and humanitarian aid from them. Like, I think that's Jesus wants to separate us from the ideologies that see like other people who live maybe across a border from us as inhuman, and us as perfect and just. And he wants to break down that wall. As much as he wants to heal that divide, he wants to break down the wall too. The irony to me is maybe I see Jesus dividing us from ideologies that divide us from other people. If I can put it that way.
And to go back to math, division of division becomes multiplication,
Oh, no.
right?
Oh, gosh, Jonathan. This is why you worked at Mathnasium.
That's right. Best first job I could have ever asked for. No, but Seth, I think I'm really glad that you're going where you're going, because I think a lot of these ideas that we are talking about or making mention of are these ideas that do divide us. And especially ideas where we have chosen to divide ourselves. Because these few verses at the end, I think, are really interesting. Like, thinking about the context of the very land that you were just describing. You see a cloud from the west coming from over the Mediterranean Sea. You can envision the water that would be carrying over the land of Gaza or other parts of that part of the world. Or thinking about the south wind blowing, air moving up from the Arabian Peninsula, present day Saudi Arabia and the UAE and these other spaces in this desert. And being able to look and see clearly, I'm like, oh, that's coming from over the water. Maybe it's bringing water. Oh, that's coming from the desert. It's probably going to be hot. There's this critique that Jesus has. Like, when you see something that you can clearly understand, why are you making it something far more complicated?
That's my definition of a conspiracy theory.
Taking something simple and making it more complicated?
Yeah. Like
Mm.
that's how I think about, like, I'm convinced that mattress, like all the mattress stores are like money laundering. I think it's easier to think that mattresses are not that expensive to produce. There's only like one salesperson there who has to sell you something. The overhead's super low, and they sell the mattress for a high cost, and therefore they can make money and have a bunch of these stores. Like, I think that's easier than like jumping through hoops about money laundering.
Like it's those kinds of examples too. It's like I don't know, and I don't know about spaces you've been in, Seth, but when we talk about conflict in Palestine, people are often saying, "Oh, it's just so complicated."
Yeah, yeah.
And now, is the like geopolitical history of that region of the world complex? Yes, unequivocally yes. Can we look at what is happening now and say that it is complicated? I think we can look at it and say yes, it has been complicated. I think there are
Like
classic examples of
people
like people have
purposefully
made it
have made it.
complicated.
Yeah,
Exactly.
they've tried to muddy it.
It's like, what do we do when we see injustice? That's not to say we will. That's not to say we will never see things unclearly or incorrectly or grow in our understanding. But when we recognize it, what is it that's motivating us to talk ourselves out of it? What is it? I think it comes back to these ideas that are dividing us. To say, Seth, that there are some people who are worthy of dying by starvation. To say that there are some people who are worthy of dying by forced relocation. That they're worthy of dying by military grade attacks on civilians. Whose land do we say, oh, well, those people are there, but you can just take it anyway? We are a species that has come to depend on labeling other members of our same species as less than. And these practices of deep injustice, I think, are where I want us to sit for just a minute more and think about some of these words from the 82nd Psalm. I'm going to use one word at a moment in a couple of verses. It's Selah, and it's not just a decades old contemporary Christian music group. It is a Hebrew word that is often translated as sit and reflect on these things. It is a command, an invitation to really sit with what has been said in the Psalms. So I'm going to say that word. I might not pause for that long, but you can certainly pause on the recording or continue on with us. Let me hear these few verses from the start of Psalm 82. God has taken their place in the divine council. In the midst of the gods, they hold judgment. How long will you judge unjustly and show partiality to the wicked? Selah. Give justice to the weak and the orphan. Maintain the right of the lowly and the destitute. Rescue the weak and the needy. Deliver them from the hand of the wicked. They have neither knowledge nor understanding. They walk around in darkness. All the foundations of the earth are shaken. So we're thinking about what Jesus may need to divide us from. We have this psalm that comes alongside this reading. And Seth, I'm just curious to wrap up our conversation here. What do you think this psalm calls us to?
I wonder if it's just sort of sometimes they'll let our emotions, like our emotions just compel us. You talked about the way that this conflict may not be complicated, but it's been complicated by others. And I wonder if this is like just like sometimes you have to feel and let that motivate you. Like sometimes you have to get out of the headspace and to just sort of like to trust the ways that like your gut moves, if I can say it that way. Not to what's the second line? Something like how long
will you judge unjustly and show partiality to the wicked?
Oh, like, to me, I hear that and I think, okay, like, that's permission for me to say, oh, this is unjust and these people are wicked. And right now, like, I don't know if God's doing something about it. I can't tell one way or the other. But I need to. I need to push against it. I need to be the one who like helps the weak and the orphan. I think that's from the next line. Like, I need to be the one who does it. And I think doing that is to be like part of God's justice, God's mission in the world. And sometimes, like I was saying, sometimes to do that we need to let our gut tell us when something's unjust and someone or nation state or company or some other like militant group is doing something that's wicked. I just saw this the other day. I'm gonna see if I can recite it. Ted Lasso is talking to Rebecca. He says, just listen to your gut. And on your way, check in with your heart. And between those two, they'll let you know what's what. And I wonder, I'll speak for myself again. I wonder if I haven't been doing that enough. Like, sometimes I'm not willing to let my gut move me. And I can make it so heady and get lost in all the discourse. I wonder if that's just not helpful in a lot of ways. And not that there isn't a place for that, but if we don't let our gut and our hearts have a say in it too, it can get us all tripped up, all sort of like tied in knots even. It can make us maybe divided against ourselves, like we get confused. It can stop us from like seeing the division that's already present in the world.
You know, one of the strongest tools of the oppressor in all of its forms is to communicate to the oppressed that they cannot trust themselves. They can't trust their gut. They can't trust their heart. And it's a impactful tool that also impacts the oppressor, because they are then forced to rely on these dehumanizing narratives to approach others. There's something here to be said about how not only when we see injustice in action that we should name it as such and respond to it as such. I'm coming back to what you were talking about before, Seth, is that Jesus seeking to divide us from these ideas that divide us. My goodness. What abundance, what multiplication is possible. And I think that's the point where we need to pray. Can I pray for us, Seth?
Anytime, Jonathan, but certainly now.
Holy One, you have guided your people for generations, giving them strength to stand for justice and with the weary. Teach us to follow in the footsteps of the faithful whose courage burned brighter than fear. Mindful of the many names by which your children cry out to you from all over the world, I pray in the name of the Prince of Peace who divides us from oppression. Amen.